Hi guys, so today I'm going to customize and upcycle a sweatshirt that I was given by my sister because she wasn't wearing it, and it's not the most flattering sweatshirt. I mean, sweatshirts aren't supposed to be flattering, but it's just a wide cut and it's not comfortable enough to keep it that way, so I'd rather it being in a aesthetic way. For that, I already have a design in mind. There was a day where I woke up and I had this design in my mind, so I straight away sketched it, and it was I think a year ago maybe, and I knew that I wanted to do something more than just keep it as a sketch, so this is the design idea that I have. It's kind of stupid maybe, I don't know, I just think it's funny, and please don't steal it, it's my design, thank you very much. But yeah, I think I'm going to embroider this one because I think that would look really cool, and I haven't embroidered anything in quite a bit, so that's what I'm going to do. But first of all, I'm going to resize my sweatshirt because I just don't like the way it fits currently. So what I'm going to do is probably crop it. It's a very, very light pink sweatshirt, which you can't really tell in the clip, but I'm just letting you know. The first thing that I'm going to do to crop it is I'm going to unstitch the pocket on the front so I can cut it where I want to cut it, basically. After the pocket has been unstitched at the top, it does leave a mark on the sweatshirt, but I personally really don't mind, so I'm going to move on to the next step in the cropping process, which is cutting it where I want it cut. As you can see, the fabric is really thin, but once that's done, I'm going to pin it before sewing all of it. So for the design, I took pictures of the sketch and then used the app that I always use, which is Ibis Paint. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but with this app, I'm basically outlining the design in black, so outlining the wooden figures and adding some circles for the planets, and then printing it at the right size. After the outlines have been separated or cut, I'm going to lay it out on my sweatshirt, making sure that they are all placed exactly where I want them to be. So be sure to experiment if you're doing something of the kind to be confident in your final placement. Then I'm securing each piece of paper to the sweatshirt with pins. I picked out a thread that I wanted to use for the outline, which ended up being this bright hot pink since I thought it would complement the colour of the sweatshirt pretty well. But I also picked out a needle that I could use with the thickness of the thread. I did break one somehow, since it was actually pretty tedious threading it through, which leads me to my next advice/thought. Most people, when they embroider or sew something onto a piece of fabric, they use hoops, which tightens and secures the fabric, making it easier to embroider. And that's something I didn't do because I didn't think it was necessary, and once I did, I realized that I didn't have small enough hoops that I could use for the small pieces of paper that I was working with. But if you can, I would recommend using them, they are very useful. Anyway, once the outline was sewn, I took a towel that I wet to dampen the paper so it would be more easily removable. Some tiny pieces still stayed, but I'm sure they'll be gone in the wash. After that, I picked out some threads and arranged them into sets, I guess, so I knew in advance which colours I would be using for each planet. I do want to add that with the way that I embroidered the planets, that's to say going horizontally, if I wasn't careful then that way of doing it would scrunch up the fabric, which is why one of the planets, originally a circle, ended up looking like an oval. So whenever you sew, I would recommend keeping that in mind, like that you can stretch it out every now and then to prevent that from happening, and carefully tightening the thread as you go. After all of that was done, I added planets because it felt very empty, and then the writing that I did with a blue Posca pen. At first it was only going to be a guideline for the thread since I originally wanted to write it with a blue thread, but I really liked the way it looked with just the Posca pen, so to have an idea of what it would look like after washing the sweatshirt, to know whether I could keep the writing as it is, I did a test. I wrote hello on the same fabric that I then placed in hot water mixed with washing powder, and then I had to wait for it to dry. I'm conflicted. As you can see, 3 out of 5 letters came out perfectly, while the 2 others came out pretty washed out, which is giving me extremely mixed results. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do this again. I'm going to try to do this again to see if the perfect ones end up washed out as well, or if these 2 came out like this because of the fabric and not the paint. If it ends up exactly the same, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it like this, but the washed out parts I will maybe sew in. But yeah, I'm pretty confused. I'm going to try this again and I'll come back with maybe the same results. We shall see. So as previously mentioned, I did this again, but this time I did it in a smaller container because looking back I have no idea why I did it in such a big one, but yeah. I hung it to dry. As you can see, it's the same result. Since it's the same as it was, I'm just going to leave it as it is and go on to the next step, which is taking care of the inside of the sweatshirt. So this is what it looks like on the inside. It's pretty messy, and technically if you do this properly you should be able to leave it as it is, I think. I'm not sure, but since I'm not completely confident in the way I did it, I'm just going to secure it all with some glue. The glue that I'm going to use is wood glue. After all of the embroideries are covered in glue, the glue is hard and can be pretty uncomfortable on the skin or to put on, which is why I will definitely cover it all with a piece of fabric, but I just couldn't be bothered to do it now, so I'll definitely do it later in the future. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and let me know what you think on the sweatshirt. I really like how it turned out. At first I was very unsure of it all, but once I added more planets I was definitely happier with the way it turned out. I just think it's a very fun piece of clothing that I'll definitely be wearing more in the future. I forgot how long it takes to embroider anything. It's so time consuming embroidering, and I feel like every time I forget how long it takes, but it was still a pretty fun project and I hope you enjoyed. But yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!